This is section 11.0 on how big is big, an introduction to an exponential growth. So what I wanted to do here is try to make this math class connect to the real world a little bit more, because that truly is the purpose of this math class, connecting mathematics to the everyday world. And what I wanted you to see is that big numbers happen, and I wanted you to get a concept of large numbers. What's the difference between 1,000, a million, a billion? We've seen numbers in trillions lately. So what are those numbers? What do they mean? I did take some political hot topics in this section here. I do not mean to be political. It is not my stance that you should think one day or one way or another politically. What I want you guys to be able to do is to be able to think analytically. I want you to be able to think mathematically. When someone says a number such as currently the COVID bailout, the latest COVID bailout was over $2 trillion. I wouldn't call it necessarily a bailout. I'd call it more of a, recovery fund. I don't know what to call it. It's not like they're bailing out people for being bad. It's a crisis happened and they needed that to support the community, the people and the businesses. So I'm not trying to give a political spin. What I'm trying to get you to do is think about $2 trillion. How much money is that? Because we can just write checks and the government can send us money, or we can have bailed out companies before, and there's been requests made. For instance, the one that I go over in this packet is about the border wall, about obtaining money for the border wall. And rather than you taking it politically, what I want you to do is think about it analytically. Think about the problem, what's the solution, and how much money are we talking about here. So this section absolutely is not in the textbook. There's no way this section's in the textbook. This is a nice topic that I saw when I was an undergrad from an author who just got us to think. And I kind of played off of that and tried to make it local, tried to make it real world. I want you to explore numbers. So, again, no political thought on this one. It might seem like there's a political hint in there, but there's not. What I want you to do is think about the numbers. I want you to start thinking analytically. So I will give you a problem, and you give me a solution or explore solutions. Okay? All right, so this section is going to require you to Google a lot of information. I don't want you to just copy down the numbers that I'm writing here. I want you to spend the time Googling this individually, because depending on what website you go to, depending on the date that you Google it, you're going to get different information. But I want big pictures here. Are we talking about 100,000 or a million? Because there's a big difference between the two. So if it's something like 7.2 million, I don't care if you want to argue, oh, I saw that it was 6.8 million, or I saw that it was 7.7 million. Yeah, but it's around 7 million. That's what I'm getting at in this one, is about how big are things. So I'm not looking for exact numbers here. I'm looking for estimations. Each one of these things, each one of these topics on example 1, I want you to Google and I want you to try to get a number. Now in the solutions, I wrote the words. But in these videos, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write it with zeros, because I really want you to physically see these numbers. So if I say 1 million, rather than writing a 1 and then writing the word million, I'm actually going to put all those zeros there, because I really want to emphasize how big these numbers are. Okay, so let's look at this. It says, how many people live in Phoenix, Arizona? So I want you to Google it. Google, how many people live in Arizona? If you don't like Google, you want to use Bing or Yahoo or some other browser, by all means do. I'm going to call it Googling it, okay? So Google it and see what you see. And the first thing that I notice is when I do this in class, I get out, everyone gets a Chromebook and everyone searches it, and I get a bunch of different answers here. One answer I get's about 1.5 to 1.7 million, so I'm going to put 1.6 million. So what's 1.6 million? Well, that's 1,600,000 people. Okay? And when this says live in Phoenix, this right here is the city of Phoenix. And when you Google this, you might see different numbers. You might actually see a number closer to 4 or 5 million. So what's the difference between my question and the 1.6 million versus that 4 to 5 million? Well, one of them is considering living in Phoenix. So Phoenix would be Phoenix proper. This would be, is your mail address, say Phoenix, Arizona, and then your zip code. For instance, I live in Tolleson, our school is in Glendale. Those are different cities, those are not considered Phoenix. So really, when I say how many people live in Phoenix, when I talk to my parents who live in Colorado, I tell them I live in Phoenix, Arizona. Well, I don't. I don't live in Phoenix proper, but I live in the Phoenix area. So when you see those numbers, those larger numbers, that's talking about the Phoenix area, the valley. So I'm going to try to kind of note that here. So the 1.6 million, again, this is people in the city of Phoenix. But then I'm going to write another one. I'm going to put something like, I don't know, approximately, I'm seeing any numbers around 4.7 million. Okay, so I'll just put 4,700,000. Again, I don't care about the exact numbers here. I just care about roughly here. So 4,700,000-ish people in, I'll just call it the valley. So that's the metropolitan area. So this is one of the larger cities. I think we're about the 10th largest city, just doing a little review, about the 10th largest metropolitan area, I guess I should say, in the nation. So Phoenix is a huge city. We have roughly around 5 million people in the valley. Okay, now let's look at how many live in Arizona. So what should you do now? Just literally just Google all of these things. So how many people live in Arizona is the next thing that I'm going to Google. When I get this, it's a rough number here. So again, just Google it. I mean, I don't even know why I'm watching this or writing this right now. Google all of these. So just Google it. Okay, in general, all you're going to do is Google this. Okay, figure it out. Google it. Okay, so I'm not going to write it on each one of the individual ones anymore. But each one of these I want you to Google, and I want you to see what you're getting. So how many people live in Arizona? I got roughly 7 point something million. So I'm just going to write down approximately 7 million people. So that's 7 with 6 zeros. That's 7 million people. How many people live in the United States? So again, just Google it. That's all I'm looking for here is just Google it. I'm getting about 328 million roughly. So let's see what that is. That's 328 with 6 zeros added on. That's a lot of people. Okay. So how many people live in the world though? How many people live in the world? So I'm going to Google it. And again, the notes that I posted aren't 100% current. They're really close, but they're not 100% current. So how many people live in the world? I'm getting about 7.6 billion. 7.594 billion is what I'm saying when I Google it right now. And that's in 2018, so it's probably a little higher than that. So how many people how do I write 7 billion? Or 7.6 billion. So that'd be 7 billion. And then I have to do the 594 is what I'll do, is what I'm seeing on my screen. So that's 594 million. So then I need 6 zeros after that. So that's a really, really, really large number. So let's just step back real quick. And again, I'm trying to go through this like you would in class. This section would actually take an entire week in class, not because it's hard to solve them, because the discussion's really important. So how many people live in the United States versus the world? In other words, what percentage of the population are we? Because a lot of people think, America's the best place to live, America's the best country in the world, and I'm not saying it's not, and I'm not saying I'm not thankful to live here. What I'm saying is we're a very, very small percentage of the world. So how do you figure out what percentage we are? Well, take however many of us there are, which is 328 million people. So type in 328 million into your calculator, and then I want you to divide that by that 7,594,000,000. So 7,594,000,000, and hit enter. And what you see on your calculator, I'm getting, I'm just going to write a little note here. The U.S. is approximately, or is about, and I'm getting 0.043. So that's 4.3% of the world population. Okay, so that's important. How big are we? Are we the biggest country? Heck no, we're not the biggest country. India's huge. China, huge. I mean, countries 3, 4, 5 times the amount of us. So just wanted to give you a little perspective. How much of the world population are we? Okay. This is going to be a little scary. I want you to Google, what is the U.S. federal budget deficit for this year? Of course, this is going to change depending on when you're watching this video, but that's exactly what I want you to Google, is U.S. federal budget deficit for this year. Okay. I'm Googling it right now. You might hear me clicking on the keypads. Let's see here. I see stuff about 2018. Let me look around a little bit. So pretty much I looked at several different sources. I'm seeing that the budget deficit for the year 2019 was over $1.1 trillion. For 2020, it's projected to be about 1.1 trillion, but that was way before all this COVID stuff happened. So now it's significantly more than that. So let's just go with the 2019 is what I'm going to use. I'm going to use the 2019 data because that's the only data that we know for sure. And this was off by $1.1 trillion. So let's see if we can do that. What would $1.1 trillion be? So that would be 1,109 billion, no millions, no thousands, no hundreds. So that has that many zeros, 9 zeros after all of that. So that is the number for $1.1 trillion. So what the heck is a federal budget deficit? Well, here's what a deficit is. What if my paycheck's $100 and I owe $150? I have a $50 deficit. So a deficit is money that you spent that you didn't have, essentially what it is, okay? It's money that you owe, money that you overspent. So these are things that I want you to start thinking about, okay? Again, I'm not trying to be political here. I am talking facts. Fact is, in the current year, which is 2020 as I'm making this video, Donald Trump is our president. And Donald Trump ran on a platform that he was going to balance our budget. He is recorded saying when Barack Obama was president, when we had President Obama, saying if you can't balance a budget meaning you would have zero deficit, then you shouldn't be president. He ran on his platform saying, I am the business president and I am going to balance the budget. Go back and look, clearly stated numerous times. In actuality, what's happening? The government currently, which I'm going to say Donald Trump's government, it is not his government, it is not just him doing this, but I'm just going to refer to it as during his years of presidency, are overspending by well over $1 trillion, the most in history. So while you were promised for the government not to overspend, what happens in actuality? They are overspending and putting us in a debt that we will never be able to repay. And I want you to see these numbers. I want you to see what these numbers are and what we could do with these numbers. Are they using this money wisely? How is it going on? This is a really hotbed topic right now with riots going on, COVID going on, and everything. Again, not trying to be political. I can't state that enough. I want you to see the numbers, be armed with facts. So let's look at the next one. What is current student loan debt? Okay, Google it. When I Google it, I get approximately $1.5 trillion. That was as of 2018. So there would probably be higher numbers for 2019. 1.5 trillion is plenty for me. So let's go ahead and write the number 1.5 trillion. So that's 1,500,000,000,000. No millions, no thousands, no tens or hundreds. Okay? What is the current national debt? We're going to get a perspective on how big these numbers are shortly. And right now, I just want you to get the numbers. Okay, so what is the current national debt? Google it. I'm getting a number far higher than what it was in my solutions. In my solutions, I have it at 21 trillion. Now, because of the COVID thing, they added several $1 trillion worth of debt, plus the national debt of last year. I'm looking at a number of almost $25 trillion. So I want you to write that number down. I'm just going to write down approximately $25 trillion. That is 3, 6, 9, 12 zeros in there. Absolutely insane, okay? And I want you to think about this number right here. In 1 year alone, this year we've put on over $3 trillion worth of debt with all the COVID stuff going on. Last year we put over $1 trillion worth of debt. The year before that, every single year Trump has been president, we've put over $1 trillion into debt added to our national debt. This national debt is the debt of the United States over all history of the United States. So for the entire time that we've been in the United States, we have $25 trillion worth of debt. Over 5 trillion of that, probably 6 trillion of that, has come during just the Trump presidency in the last 4 years. So I want you to think about that. That is a significant percentage. That is over 20% of the debt in the entire history of the nation. Of the entire history of the nation, 20% of that debt, over 20% of that debt, has come during one presidency in the last 4 years. And that would be the Trump presidency. Again, I am not saying it is his fault. I am not saying a cause here. I am talking numbers. I am talking facts. When someone runs as a president and says the budget will be balanced, our government will not overspend, yet adds more debt in 4 years to the nation, 24%, to be close, 24% of the debt in the history of the nation, very, 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 very scary. So I want you to just understand these numbers, understand what's going on. Let's do something a little fun. Let's Google what's the largest prize ever won. I know one of the largest prizes was actually split up between multiple people, but let's look at the largest Lotto prize ever won. Go ahead and Google it. I'm seeing that it was a Powerball in 2016. And it was about $1.586 billion. I'll just go ahead and say $1.5 billion. Of course, you don't see all that money because you have to pay taxes on that money. You have to, if you take cash, that takes about half of the pot away. But let's just play with the number 1.5 billion. Okay, I'm checking myself now for how many zeros we have. 1.5 billion is 1,500,000,000. So that's what that number would look like right there. So very, very large numbers that we're talking about here, and I want to kind of put them in context again, okay? So what we have here is we have millions, we have billions, and we have trillions all written on these pages. And I want you to understand the difference between these, okay? So this is not in the actual paper, but I want you to answer the following questions. Just let's get a little context. So I'm going to write something down here. What I'm going to say is if you count one number each second, how long would it take to count to, and then we're going to answer a few different questions. 1 million, 1 billion, and 1 trillion. I just want you to get a grasp at the difference in the size of these numbers. You see millions, you see billions, you see trillions on this page. How different is it? Okay, if you're a millionaire versus a billionaire, are you that much more rich? There are no trillionaires, so okay, but we certainly did spend $1 trillion. Is that much more than a billionaire? So how many Donald Trump's wealth would it take to make $1 trillion type of thing? So how big are these? So hopefully you understand this question, and this is going to start putting these numbers in context for you. Again, so if you counted one number every second, so like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. One number each and every second. How long would it take you to count to 1,000,000? Okay, so how are we going to do this? Well, let's look at the math. If I want to count one number each second and I need to count to the number 1,000,000, so what I have is 1,000,000, which is a 1 with 6 zeros. That's how many I have, and that's seconds, right? But then I want to convert this to minutes. Well, we know that 60 seconds are in 1 minute. Then I want to convert that to hours. So we know that 60 minutes are in 1 hour. Then we want to convert that to days. So I know that 24 hours are in 1 day. This is how we do our conversions. We do them with a conversion ladder like this. Okay. So let's figure this out. Let's see what we're doing here. Notice when I do this, our conversions, the seconds cancel, the minutes cancel, the hours cancel. So now my measurement is in days. So what do? In my calculator, I'm going to hit the fraction button, the N over D button. I'm going to type in 1,000,000. So that's a 1 with 6 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I hit the down arrow, and now I'm going to write all those numbers, but I'm going to multiply them. So I'm going to do, in the denominator, I'm doing 60 times 60 times 24. Hit enter. And it gives me a fraction. Right above the enter button in the fraction is a little double arrow button. So hit that double arrow button right above enter, and that's going to give you the decimal. And this is giving you how many days. So if I wanted to count 1,000,000 seconds, this would take 11.57 days. So I would be able to count to 1,000,000 in less than 12 days, which was surprising to me. When I originally thought about it, I'm like, million's huge, that's going to take forever. Okay. Well, that's the answer to part A, right? That's how long does it take to count to 1,000,000. My question now becomes, how long does it take to count to 1,000,000,000? Well, instead of doing the exact same, let's just do the exact same math. But now we're going to do it with 1,000,000,000 seconds. And before you answer this, I want you to take a guess. If it takes 11 days, 12 days to count to 1,000,000, how long is it going to take to count to 1,000,000,000? Is it going to take, I don't know, maybe 6 months? Or is it going to take something like 60 years? Or is it going to take like, I don't know. Just write down a guess without doing the math. Try writing down a guess. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do 1 minute is to 60 seconds. And then I'm going to do 1 hour is to 60 minutes. And then 1 day is to 24 hours. And then I'm also going to do 365 days are in 1 year. So I'm going to do this answer in terms of years, just as a guess that it's going to take a while. We'll see here. So in my calculator, in the numerator, I'm doing a fraction, the N over D button. I'm going to type in 1,000,000,000, which is a 1 with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 zeros. In the bottom, in the denominator, I'm doing 60 times 60 times 24 times 365. And I hope you're doing this along with me. And let's see what we get. I'm getting an answer of 31.71 years. So look at the difference between those two. Counting to 1,000,000 can be done in less than 12 days. Counting to 1,000,000,000 would take almost 32 years. The exact same pace, you're going to say one number every single second. So think about the gross difference between 1,000,000 versus 1,000,000,000. Let's make it even worse. Let's count to 1,000,000,000,000 now. So if we count to 1,000,000,000,000, how many zeros do we need? Well, that number that I have written down with 9 zeros is 1,000,000,000, so to make it trillion, I need 12 zeros. Again, this is going to be the exact same math as above. We have 1 minute is in 60 seconds. We have 1 hour is 60 minutes. We have 1 day is 24 hours. And we have 1 year is 365 days. So seconds cancel, minutes cancel, hours cancel, days cancel. Whatever we get is going to be our answer in years. So again, I'm going to put this into my calculator. I'm going to put 1 trillion in the numerator now. So I'm just redoing the same thing. I'm just adding 3 more zeros into the numerator is what I'm doing. Make sure you have 12 zeros in that numerator and hit enter, and let's see what you get. And I'm getting a total of 31,709.79 years. So how big is this? Absolutely ginormous. A trillion is so big that I can't even begin to express it to you. This is a nice little idea of saying, look, 1,000,000 takes 12 days. 1,000,000,000, if we wanted to count there, would take 32 years. And 1,000,000,000,000 would take over 31,000, nearly 32,000 years to count to. These numbers are absolutely ginormous. The trying to even conceive of a national debt of $25 trillion is ridiculous. The interest payments alone on $25 trillion are payments that we can't even afford. So what's happening? We have to bring awareness. We have to have concern about this. We can't just sign laws in saying write off another $1 trillion. We have to think about spending our money and spending our money wisely. Very, very scarily. So step back on this page again. You have a wonderful guide here of just what are some real world numbers here, some nice perspective. We have numbers with millions, billions, and trillions, and hopefully we get a little perspective of it. So we're going to go on to the next page, and the next page is going to explore some of these numbers further, try to put some of these numbers into context a little further.